million option to return to the Lakers next season. That's confirmed by our Bill Ryder. It'll be the final season of Westbrook's 5-year, $206 million contract. The deadline for players to pick up their option is Wednesday afternoon. And Philly star Bryce Harper will undergo surgery on his broken left thumb, according to multiple reports. The reigning NL MVP is expected to miss at least 6 weeks and aims to return this season. Harper was struck by a Blake Snell fast pitch Saturday night against the Padres.
Back on HQ, the spotlight on NBA free agency. The contentious back and forth from Kyrie Irving and the Nets has a resolution for now. Kyrie has opted into the final year of his 4-year contract worth a shade under $37 million. Two sides discussed several options tied to games played, but couldn't come to a longer-term deal for a player who's played less than half his games in 3 seasons in Brooklyn. There was talk of a potential deal to the Lakers, the only team that wanted him, but the Nets wanted no part of Russell Westbrook, who opted in to the final year of his deal today, worth more than $47 million. So 2 guards now off the free agent market, but there are more. Here's what it looks like for the Nets. They have Kevin Durant locked up for 4 more seasons, Ben Simmons for 3 more. He's coming off back surgery, hasn't been on the court for more than a year. Irving at $36.5 million for 1 more season, so expect more headaches in Brooklyn. As far as the Lakers, LeBron and Russell Westbrook both in the final years of their current contracts. Meanwhile, Anthony Davis is under control for 2 more seasons, but can enact an early termination option to become an unrestricted free agent in the summer of 2024. All right, let's welcome in Bill Ryder for Free Agency Insight. And let's start, Bill, with Kyrie. You and I have talked a lot about this prior, but Irving's impact on the floor regarding wins and losses hasn't been there in Brooklyn. Last season, another example, including the playoffs, the Nets were 14-19 with Kyrie on the floor, 30-23 without him. But the opt-in, not only about him, clearly about Kevin Durant, who wants him on the team. When you look at the impact of the Irving opt-in, what's at the top of your list?
Yeah, Jim, you said it. I mean, Kyrie Irving is massively talented, but that talent is not translated to the success on the floor that it needs to, really, for Kyrie Irving to be worthy of the attention he thought he deserved. I think there's a couple takeaways. One, clearly there was not a robust market for Kyrie's services. 2, he was never going to be willing, it turned out, to take less money, significantly less money, to go to a place like the Lakers, who were interested, but the mid-level exception is what they have to offer. If they can't unload Russell Westbrook, that's around $6 million because they're in the tax. And 3, this saga almost certainly continues one way or another. There's certainly the opportunity for Kyrie to seek a trade now that he has opted into this deal, but he's almost certainly, I'm not sure, almost certain, it's highly likely he'll be part of a Nets team that you just walked us through is a mess. Ben Simmons is a question mark. Kevin Durant will be happy to stick around if Kyrie's there, but Kyrie obviously is not simpatico. It's not on the same page as this Nets organization, even though he wanted the money and took the opt-in.
Yeah, KD has the blind spot for Kyrie, if you will. But the other side of that was, we mentioned Russell Westbrook opts in for better than $47 million, Bill. With regards to this, a team that has a new coach, Russ did not come off the bench a season ago. How do you see the Lakers getting the most out of Russ this coming season?
Jim, I know it's the most important question in Los Angeles, and it's a critical question. There are no good answers. I talked to some Lakers sources over the last couple of days who knew that this reality, that Westbrook was going to opt into this $47 million and change deal, was an inevitability, but they didn't want it to happen because LeBron James needs to be, and this has been true his entire career, surrounded by shooters and players that play a high level of defense. Russell Westbrook doesn't fit either of those parameters, even when he was at the high end of his ability. Obviously, at least over the last couple of years, he's deteriorated. So what they're going to have to do in LA is try to find a way to make a bad fit in Westbrook and a player who's not the former MVP level caliber guy that he was a couple of years ago somehow be less destructive, less problematic than it was last year. But in terms of making it work, I think, guys, it's going to be a Band-Aid on a pretty big problem. And I'm not sure there's an easy solution or, frankly, a successful solution over the course of the next season.
Well, looking around the rest of the NBA, Bill, the face of the Washington Wizards is Bradley Beal, 10 years now in the league with Washington's, and really now all signs pointing to him staying there in D.C., according to reports. Beal likely there to pick up or decline the option and re-sign with Washington on a 5-year deal worth a projected $248 million. Beal's birthday is today. He's turning 29. He'll be 33 at the end of that contract. What do you think, Bill? Young enough after this deal for Brad to go ring chase after getting paid at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I won't say I don't think so. It's certainly not a guarantee. Had Bradley Beal, and I respect the fact that he wanted to stay in Dallas, that his family and what they want to do was important to him, that he feels loyalty to an organization. No criticism. But had Bradley Beal decided to go somewhere else, if that was the choice that he and his family wanted, he could have been easily the second best player on a championship caliber team. I'm not sure that the casual fan realizes how dynamic this guy is, what a level of scorer he is. It's just easy to miss when you're not on a team that's particularly relevant. This guy's incredible. He's not going to be, almost certainly, and we'll see, maybe Washington will prove me wrong over the next few years, on a contending team over the course of this deal. And Sherry, I think at 33, history tells us it's highly likely when that time rolls around, his next contract, he can be a bit player maybe, but the impact he has now, a nearly 30-point-per-game player, that guy's probably no longer going to be around. And so while he's made the decision he's made, and good for him, I think the window on Bradley Beal being a difference maker on a championship team closes with this deal, with his decision to stay in Washington, unless they do something they haven't done in a generation, and that is put together a winning roster around their star.
Yeah, that's interesting. The Chicago Bulls, Bill, a team that ran out of steam a season ago. They were atop the Eastern Conference for a good portion of the season. And now Zach LaVine, coming off a season in which he scored better than 27 points a game, is hitting the open market. What is the likelihood that Chicago is his landing spot versus elsewhere around the league?
Yeah, this one, Jim, this one's really interesting and really intriguing because the Bulls have built their entire operation. I think it's an impressive one. And you noted, I mean, they've been banged up over the last 12 months. When they were healthy, they had one of the best records in the NBA. But a lot of signs, and some of the people I talked to around the NBA, the expectations are that LaVine may test that market. The problem for Zach LaVine, like it is for a lot of the big-name free agents in this class, is that the teams who have cap space, teams like Detroit, teams like San Antonio, maybe Portland, aren't desirable locations and they're not desirable rosters. And you put that together, it's hard to lure someone like Zach LaVine. The places a guy like Zach LaVine wants to go, the Los Angeles Lakers, organizations like that, just don't have the means to bring him in, especially if he wants to make near the max, and especially if he wants a sign-in trade, which puts a team that he'd go to in a hard cap reality. So the people I talk to, Jim, think it's very possible he's going to be somewhere else. He's certainly given indications that he's open to being somewhere other than Chicago. But that will require some nifty front office maneuvers by contending teams and Chicago's cooperation, or a surprise in Zach LaVine going to a market superstars usually don't choose to go to.
Well, the James Harden experiment in Philly didn't play out like the faithful thought they would as they continue to trust the process. They were close, losing in the conference semifinals, but the decision for Harden now becomes be an unrestricted free agent for the first time in his 13-year career, or pick up his $47.4 million player option in 2023. Bill, which decision do you think fits the beard best?
Yeah, Sherry, it's interesting because on the face of it, in terms of the decision-making in front of him, it's very similar to what Westbrook and Irving have to decide, right? Do you opt into the massive deal and take that 1 year, or do you not? The difference is that those two guys are obviously at odds with their respective organizations. And I think Harden and Daryl Morey, who runs basketball operations in Philadelphia, who had the same role in Houston when Harden was there, are on the same page. Daryl Morey has said as much time and again to media over the last week. I think you're going to see James Harden opt into that deal and then agree to some kind of an extension, not a max, not a super max. Ownership in Philadelphia, they're not particularly excited about giving someone at his age with what has been questionable performance over the last year. It's not been bad, it's simply been mixed, that level of money. So I think what's most likely is Harden opts into the deal and then takes some kind of a 3 or 4 year compromise at less than a max, right? Meets Philadelphia halfway, but a sizable amount of money, and maybe enough that allows Philadelphia to go out and add some weapons. Think PJ Tucker at 3 years and $30 million, that they wouldn't be able to do without Harden's help in negotiations and taking a little bit less than what he might command somewhere else.
Yeah, that Tobias Harris contract, as you just saw there, is a huge deal on that Philadelphia cap. And then there's DeAndre Ayton, and to some it's surprising that the Suns have not found common ground with their center on a long-term deal. He's one of 7 big men all time to average 15 points, 10 rebounds while shooting 55% over his first 4 seasons in the league. Bill, how do you see Ayton's free agency playing out?
Yeah, Jim, what a bizarre situation. I think it speaks to a couple things. I think it speaks to the lack of value of traditional big men in this league, even with organizations where they play, even organizations that made a finals in part through that big man's help. And I think it also speaks to the fact that in Phoenix, there's a strong belief, fair or not fair, accurate or not accurate, that Chris Paul had a lot to do with DeAndre Ayton hitting this next level. I think that Ayton's going to get a major payday. I think he's going to be offered serious money from a place like Detroit. And I think it'll be really interesting whether or not, I don't know the answer, the Suns will match that money. They have indicated they don't value him at that level. They have not been willing to give him that money before now. But as a source pointed out to me, the Suns are more than able to play hardball, to do what they've done, and then to match an offer if it comes in. So the real question for me, I think, is how much are the Suns willing to pay for DeAndre Ayton? I think it's when, not if, when some other organization, one of those teams less desirable but that has cap space, makes him a pretty sizable offer.
One move we do know, John Wall will become an unrestricted free agent later this week. He was in the final year of the 4-year, $171 million extension he signed with the Wizards back in the summer of 2017. Now, Wall hasn't appeared in a game since April of 2021, having sat out all last season. Reportedly, Bill, there's ties for him to go to the Clippers. What's your thought on all of this?
Yeah, I mean, isn't it nice to be able to have $40 million in walk-away money to be able to make decisions based on a team you want to be at, right? And an organization, a city you want to be at. Yeah, everyone that I've talked to have confirmed the reports that are out there that the Clippers are the place John Wall wants to be. He'll probably do it on the mid-level exception, which is technically well below what his value would be if he were healthy. But again, he's made a lot of money, and he was paid a lot of money to go away. And I think it makes sense. I mean, if you're the Clippers or any organization, but it'll be the Clippers, you get a guy who used to be an all-star, who used to be a superstar. It's all upside. You're not paying him a lot of money. He has a leadership value. He's a really well-respected guy. And if he can reclaim 20%, 30% of his level from back before he was injury prone, to say nothing of more than that, it is a huge boost to a Clippers team that, if healthy, and it's an if, but if healthy, if Kawhi Leonard is 100%, can certainly be a competitor for an NBA championship this next season.
I was there in D.C. when John Wall was still at his prime, you can say, and man, it would be so good to see John Wall back out there on the floor healthy. But Bill Ryder there with a preview of NBA